This is an area that I've always wanted to come to for a variety of reasons. First of all, it's just drop dead gorgeous, but also it's a regional cluster of unexplained missing people going back decades. This is one of those clusters of the 59 I've documented that really has had intrigue to me over the years. And within this Santa Fe cluster, we're going to focus on three very unusual, very mysterious disappearances. The first being 75-year-old Audrey Kaplan disappeared in July 2014. She was with her husband. They had a house here in Santa Fe, and they decided to come up to the ski resort and look for mushrooms. And it was a popular mushroom picking site up in here. And what they did is they hiked up the trail into the wilderness area, and somehow or another they got separated. Well, Audrey, who was in extremely good shape for an older person, couldn't be found, and they started a search for her. Audrey disappeared July 30th, one of the hottest months in the Santa Fe area. Now, there were thunderstorms that happened post-disappearance, and that night they had searchers on scene, and for the following several days, they scoured that mountain. And eventually, days later, one searcher, way off the primary grid area, came upon a very unusual sight. He started to see a camping area that seemed to be pretty much destroyed. And he walked up and he saw a woman in the fetal position in about 4 or 5 inches of water in a creek, deceased, naked. No shoes, no clothing, no nothing. Her face was in the creek. Her entire body was laying on its side in the fetal position. A very strange sight. And the coroner made a determination that was even more unusual than the sight in the creek. And he said that there was no physical evidence that she died of hypothermia, but the determination was hypothermia that killed her. Now, I've read that report 20 times. It makes no sense. She had no distinct injuries to her body, that there was no physical symptoms of hypothermia. He also stated that in his report, her face wasn't in the water. And the crime scene photos clearly show Audrey was completely in that creek. So, a lot of confusing, strange aspects to the Audrey Kaplan disappearance. The second story that involves this exact area, and that's 61-year-old Mel Nadell, who disappeared up in the wilderness, went up to Elk Mountain in the Santa Fe National Forest, elk hunting. What kind of wildlife would somebody find up in the mountains out here?
We're rich. Elk, mule deer, bear, lions.
And the size of the elk and the deer?
Really good trophy quality. New Mexico grows really good animals. We're stingy on our tags. It's a draw system. So hunting's a really big sport. New Mexico is a destination for elk hunters. The numbers of elk are really small compared to our western states, but our hunting quality is really high.
Mel had a slight knee injury. He had stepped in a gopher hole while target practicing a day or two prior. Once Mel met up with his friends at Elk Mountain, and the three made a plan for the evening's hunt. Mel would stick close while the other two would go on a pretty good hike. Mel pointed out a group of trees about 150 yards down the trail, while the other two would hike in the opposite direction toward the peak. Did you expect him to come home that night?
No. The following morning he said he's coming back.
So he's going to camp up there?
Yes.
Spend the night?
Yeah.
And he's done that before?
Yes.
Did Mel ever jog or walk long distances?
No.
So if Mel saw an elk, he's not going to walk 3 miles.
No.
He won't do it.
He doesn't like to walk.
So knowing that, then that really puts confinement
Yeah.
on where he would have been.
Yeah. He didn't go hiking with them. The friends went up the mountain, like searching for animals. And then when they get down, the jeep was there. There was no Mel.
But he should have been back by then.
He should been there.
Eventually, another hunter came along with a satellite phone. They called search and rescue. They responded with canines, ground teams, and the canines tracked right to the spot where everyone expected Mel to be at his blind. Now think about this for a minute. If Mel had wandered, maybe shot an elk and traveled to look for it, his tracks and his scent would be past that point, but they weren't. And Mel was carrying a bow. He was carrying a firearm. Where are those items? When he went out hunting, he had a pistol.
And he was carrying it when he was, and we never find it.
Never found the bow.
No.
Did they ever find anything?
No.
Never found anything.
That
So-
is the bizarre stuff. How can you if you get lost, isn't it's gonna get heavy to hold on to all of it? There's nothing. Shoes and like one of the arrow will fall or the bow has to drop because those are heavy. Nothing.
Did the search and rescue people say that was odd?
Everybody said it was odd. There's nothing. A shred of clothing, nothing. If he was kind of attacked by a bear, there's no shred of clothing anywhere.
And Bob, how many years have you been guiding?
This is my 25th year.
25th year. And how many years of experience do you have in the mountains surrounding Santa Fe?
I'm 53 now, almost my entire life.
And I know you know the story.
Yep.
What could have happened to him in your mind?
Here in New Mexico, Roswell, alien abduction. Yeah. Really, he had to have gotten a ride out. He had to have been picked up or gotten a ride out there, I assume. If he was a mobile person and a hiking person, he could just be so far off target from where anybody assumed he was going. But in his sense, what we understand, he probably didn't do that.
Right.
He probably didn't take off on a long march anywhere. Yeah, history mystery. What happens to the big jet airliner in the huge ocean?
As strange as Mel Nadell's case was, there was another case much more recently. November 7th, 2017, another hunter disappeared. Stanley came up to an area about 10 miles from where Mel Nadell disappeared, in an area called Barillas Peak. And he was in a vehicle with his father and another friend, and they were driving the dirt roads looking for deer. Deer crossed in front of him. Stanley jumped out with his rifle, chasing the deer. And just as he was chasing the deer, fog and heavy rain simultaneously hit that area where he disappeared into. And then he wanders, apparently. That started a 7-day search for Stanley. The canines can't pick up a scent. Helicopters in the air can't see him. Professional trackers can't find any tracks. Fast forward 5 months later, and an off-duty New Mexico State police officer and his son are fishing on the Pecos River. They find a body. He wasn't immediately identified, but the coroner eventually came around to say it was, and that he had some skull injuries and he had 2 broken ribs. Presumption was that he drowned. Stanley's body was found 9 miles from his point of separation. It's another weird disappearance, with this one just happening. Especially in these cluster zones, this is one of those recurring phenomena. It's going to happen again, it's just a matter of time. In talking with Edna, one of the things they found in Mel's Jeep was his GPS. Now that's an important device that will help you get back to your point where you started the hike. And it's supposed to be a trail guide for you. Now personally, I don't think it's unusual that Mel didn't take that, because he knew in himself that he was only going to walk 100, 150 yards down that trail. If you're going to purchase a GPS device, consider it your insurance plan. And this is an example of why you should always carry that insurance plan with you whenever you go into the wilderness, hiking, hunting, or sightseeing.
We're paid to hunt for a 5-day period, so we make sure people pack the right gear to be able to stay in the field all 5 days, to therefore increase their odds the highest possible. And so our basic list, and a packing list that I expect hunters to carry in the field, it has their hunting license in it, and it has a bottle of water they're drinking. It has a bottle of water you're not planning on drinking. It has a garbage bag that's the most useful wilderness tool in the world, for a raincoat to sit on, to pack something in.
As a hunter, you're like, I'm fine, I'm armed, I'm safe, I'm the baddest thing out here because I have a firearm with me. And then you read more and more and more, and these are people that are more experienced. They've been in the woods more than I have, you know. There's no reason for why these people go missing, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna pack things differently. You change your whole mindset. You take advantage of the technology that you're given today. You've got the sat phone, you've got GPS, you've got all that, but then if you don't want to have to rely on a cell phone signal, if your battery dies or something like that, you know, I've got a whistle, I've got a knife, the knife's got a fire starter. It's just all about, I'm gonna be able to take care of myself.
You know, with the camouflage patterns available today, you got this on right here, it's gonna be hard to get spotted, so carry something bright with you. This is a space blanket. And the reason I grabbed it is because it's fluorescent orange, which is a universal here I am color.
Tell somebody where you're going, tell somebody that's trusted, that is gonna look after you, and tell them what time you're gonna be out. And if you're not out by then and you're not calling them, say it's Lauren that you told, then Lauren, you know, is gonna call the authorities come out there and look for you. It's super important.
It is, and I've heard you say this many, many times, especially writing about the missing 411, check the weather. If you do get lost, there's common sense rules there. Stay put, kind of stay close to where you started, especially if you told somebody.
And you know, you don't ever want to like weigh your pack down, but one thing I will never compromise on is extra ammo. There's a 3-shot rule that a lot of people my age, I don't even think they still teach it in hunter safety courses. That's not where I learned it. I learned it from him. And it's not only I'm lost, 3 shots, here's where I am. In addition to that, if I go missing and for whatever reason I don't have that extra ammo, I've used it, I've spent my shells, back at camp, they can fire those 3 shots and you can tune into, okay, I need to turn around, I need to do this.
If you are lost, the best thing you can possibly do is get yourself into an opening. And I always tell people, take your coat, take something bright, and whip it around over the top of your head in a big circle, like a set of rotor blades or a rope that you're spinning over your head. It's really, really easy to see that from the air. Typically, we find either the person's alive or, you know, deceased. Not very often do we not find them.
Crazy Mountains are a geological upthrust that is 300 million years younger than the Rocky Mountain Range. So they're not part of the Rocky Mountain Range. They're an isolated island of mountains.
If you're in the Crazies, I don't care where you're at in the Crazies, if you follow a stream down, you're going to be somewhere soon, no matter where you are in these mountains. Because they're just an island chain of mountains.
There are several versions of why the Crazy Mountains are called crazy. The one I believe is it's a curse from the Crow Indians, because this used to be Crow Reservation, and when they were moved off the land, the Crow Indians supposedly put a curse on the Crazy Mountains for the wind to blow and drive the white man crazy.
My name's Alan Ronneberg. I'm the undersheriff with the Sweetgrass County Sheriff's Office. I'm also the search and rescue coordinator. I've actually been with the search and rescue for 24 years. I grew up in this community. I've been here, I'm 52 years old now. I've been here all my life. My parents, grandparents, great-grandparents have been here since the 1880s. It's always been an agricultural and mining community. The family ranches have been handed down for over 100 years. The people that work here raise their families here and their kids stay here. And a fantastic place to grow up.
I'm Rebecca Ryan.
I'm Charlie Ryan, and we live in Sweetgrass County, Montana, and the Crazies.
So tell us about the kind of wildlife that we would expect to see in the wilderness.
Deer, whitetail and mule deer, elk, black bear. I don't see many wolves, but they're here.
So no grizzlies up there?
That we know of.
Now, there's been folks that say they've saw grizzlies. We don't have a resident population of grizzly bears yet. I think they're coming, but there's none here now.
The Crazies themselves are unique. They are the youngest mountain range in the country. It's horrendously rugged, and you don't really understand it until you get into it.
Put this on that side of you. They're calling him Zenith.
What supposedly happened as they started on the trail going up to the Campfire Lake, they had a horse wreck. Their mule spooked and started bucking and throwing all their supplies off the trail. All of Aaron's camping equipment was basically on that mule. I know he lost his sleeping bag.
And once they got into Campfire Lake, what happened?
They started their hunt. This was their base camp, and they went and hunted from here. They were planning a week trip.
Would you describe that he had good common sense?
Yeah, Aaron had good common sense. Aaron wasn't a dummy. I mean, someone that comes up here every other weekend, always hunts up here, has stashes up here. He knows the area like the back of his hand.
They spent 2 days here at Campfire Lake. The one fella had a cache here somewhere below Sunlight Lake. So Aaron was going to go up the trail to Sunlight into the cache and get what he needed.
He was supposed to go up here, grab the cache,
Right.
and then come back to his best.
Come back into Campfire Lake. Later that day, they had called Aaron on the radio.
In a walkie-talkie?
This radio, yeah, a walkie-talkie. I think it was a Garmin Rhino is what they call them. And on that Rhino, there's an LED screen, and it also gives the GPS position of the person that's talking, as well as their position, back and forth. And when they did that, the GPS position showed him on the very edge of the screen over in this area here on the main Sweetgrass Trail.
Okay, so that's confusing. When he gets to the fork right here.
This fork.
Yeah. How evident is it that there's a fork in that trail to the lake?
Very.
So it's real obvious.
It's very obvious.
So at this point where he's down the trail over here, he's next to a creek, right?
Correct.
And the creek, everyone knows, runs one direction.
Correct.
So for him to get disoriented right here and not know which direction he's going on the trail doesn't make any sense.
No.
At what point do they realize that he's missing?
The next day, actually.
Okay.
And they waited for him for a day and then looked for him for a day. And that's when the storm starts. And the storm is coming in from this way.
Gotcha. How much did it snow?
In between 18 to 24 inches within 12 hours. The temperature was, in the 40s and 50s, and then all of a sudden it was in the teens. And the snowstorm kind of forced him out. We received a call from one of the individuals that was hunting with him, saying that he was overdue and hadn't come out. He hadn't seen him for a couple of days. And they told me Campfire Lake and said, well, you need to get a hold of Park County.
Park County goes out, they start a search.
They start a search in their county, and we go ahead in kind of a military, it'd be a blocking maneuver. There's still 6 to 8 inches of snow, rapidly melting. The temperature's getting better, it's warming up. We don't find anything.
This is a key point. So as you guys are coming up the trail,
Right.
you're not seeing any footprints going out.
Negative. Right.
Sheriff from Sweetgrass County, Alan.
It's good to see you.
On, I believe it was the second day that I was working that, I had landed with a deputy after dropping off 2 separate dog teams. And because that terrain is so steep and so deep and very, very wild country, started up high and they were going to work the dog teams coming down. And there was a gal with her German Shepherd, I believe, that found a pair of boots.
Diamond 7 Hotel Romeo traffic, 7 mile final runway 12 is an Embraer runway 12 clear for takeoff.
Helicopter 5 Tango Lima, I'll be making a turn up towards northeast to get through Ross Pass.
Roger.
This will be the road that Aaron and his two buddies drove in on. You know, pickup and a horse trailer. I know they had 2 horses and a mule.
Okay, cruising up drainage now. So you guys, the horse wreck happened right up ahead of us. So the trail's over here on this right side.
On the right.
Stays on this bench here for a while. You'll get glimpses of it whenever we go through a meadow. I'm going to make a right-handed turn, fellas, and we're going to follow the rest of the trail here. You can see where the trail is right in front of you, that zigzag. You're going to reveal into Campfire as soon as you look straight down on the other side of this cliff.
Their base camp, they're basing out of Campfire Lake.
So when you come up here, you sit up here and you spot, and that's what they were doing.
Yep.
We were spotting. We saw elk all the time over here, so this is loaded. So we'll go down to the bottom.
And you can see this kind of tough country, even on the trail, to kind of move through.
It is.
It's a workout.
Oh, man.
Going up and down these trails is one heck of a workout.
Oh yeah, you can see the trail easily.
Yeah. And the trail's like this all the way over from Campfire into the Sweetgrass. Yeah, this is the T in the trail.
Trail cuts through those rocks right there.
Yep.
There was fresh snow on the ground. It could have been easy to miss that turn.
He left before it started to snow, though.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think it was plumb bare ground when he took off, and it was actually pretty warm out, into the 50s at least. Okay, we're right at the county line. We're coming into Sweetgrass County and leaving Park County.
A lot of boulder fields through here.
It is, yeah. And these are all loose. These aren't set. They're all loose. You take one step forward and you slide 2 steps back on each foot. So you're, in our search area, that's what restricted our search area so much. It was so small because you can't get off of the trail very far. You start going across this, it's sharp. If you don't have a pair of hard-soled boots, they're going to eat your feet. Even into the timber is loose rock all over the place. Immediately from the boots, there's a scree pile. If he was barefoot, he would have tore up his feet immediately.
Coming up to the
falls now.
Probably have to turn around to see them better.
Yeah. This is the bench above the falls where the boots were found. And this bench is nice and subtle. It's kind of protected.
I'll walk that way to the
And you're limited where you can go. That was right there.
Yeah, it was right under them bushy trees,
the
actually.
little bushy trees, yeah. Right in here. Close to the creek. There are ways down into the creek that you can do it. And especially underneath the falls here, you can get into this creek. And when we searched this entire flat. After we found the boots, we picked through this like nobody's business. I had a bunch of people, and it was like a type 3 search is what we did.
So we had evidence here. At the falls, we find, there's a pair of boots, set purposely, side by side. Next to that is basically a water bladder out of like a camelback water bladder. Just off the trail there is a fire pit. And in that fire pit was a partially burnt cigarette container that we knew that was Aaron's brand. Also in the immediate vicinity are fire bundle, partially burnt. Alongside that, in the fire pit were the 2 waist belts from a backpack.
Straps that come around,
Right.
and the pack sits on your hips.
Correct.
Is that what we're talking
That's
about?
what we're talking about, yep.
Why would anybody take those off?
Cut them off. There's a little bit of insulation in there because they're padded, and you can slip your hand in there. They're a little bit of protection.
Right.
That's the first thing we thought of. That's about the only thing that made any sense. Why a person would take that waist belt off.
That must have been a little confusing to the searchers.
Absolutely. Plus, I'll throw another little bit of wrinkle in there. They were up in the same spot a day or 2 days before and never saw those items, never come across those items.
Same spot.
Same people, same spot. And they said that they never saw those boots. They never saw any of that.
How's that possible?
I don't know. These are seasoned guys. They do good at their job. They're SARTEC 2 rated through NASAR. They know what the heck they're doing. When they see the waist belt cut off and then the items laid out, it's starting to look like hypothermia. If you look at evidence from hypothermia cases in the wild or in remote areas, this is kind of the behavior that you see. So I narrow my search both sides of the creek all the way as far up onto the slope as I can get, because we didn't think if he was bad enough that he was setting stuff, he wasn't going to get very far.
So somebody who's that hypothermic isn't going to go far.
You wouldn't think so, no.
So the area east of the falls, you guys covered that pretty thick.
Oh yeah, yeah. We turned over everything.
And you're a former canine handler.
Correct.
So did the dogs hit on anything?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Well, every spring we maintain our fences, so we can graze our cattle the way we want to. So it's just an annual spring thing. And my father-in-law was here, just happened to be with me. And just, you can see the ridge up there where a section of fence runs between us and our neighbors, and just annual routine. And I was going over the fence and he was kind of hiking around, and
He looked down and he saw an orange vest. So he went down just to go pick it up, and then that's what he proceeded to find the backpack and everything else. So in his mind, he thought, well, what hunter lost his stuff up here?
And he comes down off of there just like grinning from ear to ear, just, hey, was there a hunter lost up here? I'm like, yeah, actually there was. Oh, cool. Well, his license is still in here, in his pack. Okay, so I look at it, and it was Aaron Hedges.
Did you recognize the name?
Oh yeah, I recognize the name. I mean, there was helicopters flying up way up the valley up there, and a big search, and it was in the local press.
And inside, was there any food?
There was snack bars.
There was nutrition inside.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the backpack, I understand, was actually leaning against a tree.
Correct.
So somebody just didn't strip it off and drop it.
Nope.
They put it there with intent.
They put it there with intent. They put it there purposely, and it was protected.
Okay, and what was in the backpack? I understand you found a gun.
Correct. .44 Bruger Red Hawk, I believe it was.
Did you find the bow?
Yes. It was alongside the backpack, evidently. In our search, another interesting point, I guess, when we searched this area, here at the head of this ridge, where it starts to drop off, was a cup, a thermos cup. And beside that cup was a, open energy drink. Somebody had, basically sat down and drank a cup of tea.
That's an odd sight.
Uh-huh. Yep, absolutely.
What do you think when you see that?
What the hell's this guy doing? And from this point, you could see the Ryan buildings.
From where the cup is?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they're right there. They're right down there.
And could he see a road?
Yes.
Does that make any sense to you?
No, it doesn't, because, well, I don't know if it makes sense to me or not, but it is funny.
So you don't find a body after your search. You guys...
No. We couldn't cover a large area, and we didn't have a lot of time to be able to do that.
And it wasn't a life or death situation at this point?
No, not at that point. It was evidence recovery.
So how far does it go on for the next thing to happen?
Another year. Off of the Sweetgrass Ranch, which is a dude ranch, they have a dude ride. A string of dudes, guests at the ranch were on this ride. And as they come up the hill on a little bench, one of the guests looks over and went, "Hey, there's a skull over there." And lo and behold, there's a human skull underneath the tree. I mean, just pretty as a picture, bright as a penny, underneath a dead tree.
You go back out?
Sure do.
And what do you find?
We find the skull and the remains, and where we find that is right here. We did find the pelvis and one femur on a cow trail, partially buried. I did find Aaron's cell phone, a jacket, like what you're wearing, a thin jacket.
Any pants?
Pants? No. I don't believe we found any pants. I can't remember.
Socks?
No, because we didn't find any feet.
No feet?
Right.
Did any of his bones appear to be broken, like the femurs?
No.
Did the coroner come up with any cause of death?
No.
He could have seen the creek.
Yes, he could have seen the creek.
So there he had water. I understand that there was also a lighter in his backpack?
I think so, yeah, probably.
So he could have made fire.
Mm-hmm.
He had a gun, he could have signaled help. He had food, he could have eaten. Well, you're a nurse.
Yes.
So you understand hypothermia and how it affects the body. That distance, somebody said, well, he was hypothermic way back at the falls, that's why he took his boots off. Okay, great, if you're hypothermic then, how in the heck are you gonna make it all that distance?
And that's the other thing. If he was hypothermic, why didn't he drop his bow? Why was he still packing that? That's a heavy thing to be packing, your backpack.
Mm-hmm. This all doesn't add up to me.
Nope.
Does it add up to you in any way?
No. No, and you go through your lost person behavior, your behavior as exposure takes a hold of you, and it just, none of it makes any sense.
There's two things that bother me most about the Hedges case. First, I'd like to know what caused Aaron to change course so drastically. Even if he had missed the turn to the cache, he'd eventually know he had gone too far merely by the fact he's walking adjacent to the creek that's flowing downhill away from the location he's supposed to be. This was an experienced hunter who hunted here often, and this was a full 2 days before any bad weather. The second major issue is his body being found 6 miles from the falls. where he apparently shed his boots under the theory of extreme hypothermia. Somehow, while hypothermic, he carries his bow, his backpack, a jacket, his cell phone, and thermos 6 miles through 1.5 to 2 feet of fresh snow with no shoes, then sits on a rock overlooking safety. His remains were found 11 miles from the camp he was supposed to return to. It's too much. This is one strange case.
I never take those mountains for granted. Every time I drive home from the east, it's like, oh, there they are, there's our mountains. It's the best place on earth. You know, it's the prettiest place on earth. We're prejudiced.